Trade in Path of Exile. It is no secret that it is unpleasant. It is annoying. It's a pain in the butt. No one likes it. And I have a proposal for GGG that I would love for them to see. If you think what I have here is a good proposal, I would appreciate, people trying to signal boost this and get it in front of GGG's eyes. I do have a history. I was a senior software architect and UI UX designer in and out of the game industry for over 2 decades now. So without further ado, all you video likers and channel subscribers, let's get right into it and see what I have. All right, so what are the primary problems with trade? Why does trading in Path of Exile suck? What I don't think gets talked about enough, and what I think is fundamentally the worst thing about trade in Path of Exile, is scammers. I think scammers are the scum of the earth. I think they should be hard banned from video games, and I put them in the same category as people that cheat in other video games. And if anything, it feels even worse because at least if someone's cheating in another video game, worst case, you might be losing a ranked match. But when someone scams you in Path of Exile, like, you messed up, right? Like, there are ways that you can make sure that you never get scammed. But if you're just slipping and not paying 100% attention in every single trade, there are a lot of, different psychological and game mechanic manipulations that people do to pull off these scams. That's really what I'm primarily trying to solve here. And then the second problem here is that people just don't reply. You go down the line, you whisper 8,000 people trying to trade your Exalt for Chaos or vice versa. Or you just want to do those, one alchemy trades. You're just trying to get started in the league. You want to buy like a gold rim or a tabula just, 2 or 3 weeks into the league, and no one replies because it's a pain in the butt. And why is that, right? I think it is primarily because it's so interruptive and honestly painful. I would love to trade you my gold rim for 1 alchemy. I want to get that out there and make sure that someone's getting value out of it. If I'm doing like a deli juiced mirror in a breach or a blight, or I'm in lab or anything like that, obviously the game doesn't let me do that. And I think there's room for a little bit of friction to, avoid like a full automated auction house, because that can be degenerate. As someone who wrote scripts for the old Diablo 3 real money auction house, a decade ago, and made a couple $1,000s doing it, I can tell you, if you give an industrious player the ability to automate trading, they will, they'll trade down to the lowest common denominator. There are severe risks to fully automating everything, but I think we can reach somewhere in the middle that makes both GGG and the players a lot happier. Second up, how do we make this easier so that I can trade from within my map and make it like really, really slick and keep it, just annoying enough, just a little bit of friction there, so it's not something that's, fully automatable through an API by bots or anything. Third up, regarding price fixers, there's a lot of different reasons and scams around price fixing, but a very common one would be, hey, I'm going to look at this item that's like 10 exalts. I'm going to own like 20 of them, right? And I'm going to list all 20 of them myself on the market for 2 exalts. And then I set up a price snipe so that when someone lists it around 2 or just under 10 exalts, I'm going to buy it up. The real value of the item is hidden from the trade site, and people are just going to they hit Control D with Awaken PoE trade. They do a quick price check, and they scroll down, they see the first 20 or 2x. They put theirs up at 2x and then immediately get a whisper from the price fixer, and then they get a super scam price on buying the item here. And my proposal here doesn't fix this. I do think price fixing really sucks. I would love your ideas in the comments below for how to deal with price fixers. It's not a super easy solution, and part of the vision of the economy here is kind of a true capitalist market. I don't think that's probably not necessarily a full good thing, but that is part of the vision here. Anyway, I think price fixers are an issue, but it is tough to get around them. The number one thing, with everything in this game is, buyer beware. And then fourth up, bots. Bots right now, if anything, they are the lubricant of the Path of Exile economy. I don't care how much Chris Wilson says that they're banning bots all the time. And a tremendous amount of the fungible, tradable market right now and static item trading market is bots. And if anything, they're the only ones that even reply because it is so annoying to do those trades for the average player. Price fixers and bots do kind of go hand in hand a little bit. And if trading by players becomes a lot easier, right? If someone wants to buy 5 regret orbs for 5 chaos, normally a regular human's not going to want to do that. But a bot that's just sitting in a hideout, they're going to be doing that all day. If it's very easy for me to do that and not get in the way of my mapping, then more and more players will be willing to do those trades, and the bots will have less of a stranglehold on the economy there. So enough of an intro there. That is the list of problems that I generally want to solve. Number 1 is I want to solve for scammers. And number 2, I want to solve for people just not replying. And I think there will be some very nice consequences of that that will kind of be soft solutions for the other issues that are going on in trade right now. So what is my proposal for generally trying to solve at least those first two issues, scammers and people not replying, and trying to stay within GGG's overall manifesto? By automatically taking items that were requested and offered and then putting them into a non-interactable trade window, it is very specifically the item that you listed for the price that you requested, and vice versa if you're a purchaser. So what I would like to see happen is you go to the trade site. In addition to the whisper button, I want to leave the previous functionality there. I do think there is value for player interaction, being able to discuss the actual value of items, being able to haggle. I think that's a fun and character adding portion of the trade, but it shouldn't be the only way to trade. In addition to the whisper button, there will be something along the lines of an official trade request. What that will do is send a whisper to the player, no matter where they are. They will get a whisper that looks like something like this. Pretend the accept, decline, and whisper are like official looking buttons. So we would want a little bit more richer interaction here within the trade window. So you see official buttons here that actually have the item that you listed, mouse over the actual currency, make sure that what you see there is exactly what you put forward. And the super bonus here is like the worst thing is someone whispers you for a jewel for 4 chaos, and then you invite the person, go back to your hideout, the person's in your hideout, and then you mouse over it and you're like, oh, that didn't belong in my dump tab. That's like a 2 Exile jewel. And then you have to say, sorry, buddy, that's not actually what it's worth, right? So in this situation, you'll get whispered seeing the actual item in the trade window. You would see the currency that's going to be offered, and it's verified like the currency in their public currency tab. You would, as a purchaser, have to put forth a public tab as well that has the currency that GGG will pull from. And then in the whisper line, you'll see official looking buttons that you can click on that say accept, decline, or just whisper the person back if you want to go away from the official transaction. If you click decline, the person who's trying to purchase it will see, trade request declined. They'll know that, you didn't want to actually do that trade. That'll be like the most likely thing if you, saw something that you had mispriced. And you'll actually see that you misprice it when you get that whisper, not, after everyone gets to the hideout. And then if you click accept, here's the magic. My proposal is that there will be an official non-interactable window that pops up, and it will use the ultimatum map pausing logic, and the trade will happen entirely outside of the instance. It will just be stash to stash trading between their public tab that has their currency in it and your public tab that has the item in it. Now, how to deal with the space requirements there and all that type of stuff, that can be figured out a little bit later. If something doesn't fit in a tab, they could just add remove only tabs, much like they do in standard if something doesn't fit. So this window will pop up. It'll say, at the top, it'll say official trade. Your actual map instance or lab or wherever you are will totally pause. We know they have the technology because of ultimatum, so they can do that. I want it to look very solid and different. I would propose that it looks like it's set in stone, and there's nothing you can interact with except for clicking accept, cancel, and you can mouse over it to, get the pop-up. Verify that you want to do that trade, but you can't put anything into that window whatsoever. It is just the items that were put forth for that transaction. If both the buyer and the seller both click accept, as I said before, the items will exchange stash to stash. You won't have the item in your inventory. Neither party will have the item in their inventory after the trade happens. You have to go back to the official trade tab that you've had set, with the affinity for all of that, and your item will show up there. So the number one thing here is it stops scammers, right? There is no way to fool this system. No one is interacting with anything. There's no like starting a trade and canceling a trade. It is just the specific item that you put forth in an official trade transaction going directly through the trade website. And basically all you're doing is authenticating the trade and saying, you know what, I do want to do that trade. And players will be much more active and actually be able to compete with the bots a lot more, right? Like no matter what, bots are going to be able to do those high volume trades a lot more. But in terms of the volume of trades, players will now start to be able to contribute a lot more. And I think that that is just better for the economy. And then basically a rough proposal here for how this would work on the back end. This is obviously pure speculation. I'm not privy to their architecture. Based on games that I've worked on in the past, you would do something along the lines of, when you click request trade, you could set up a temp transaction that verifies that, you have the 5 chaos and they have the item. That will just live in the in-memory cache. That way we don't have to bog down an actual database with, writing anything at that point. If the player clicks reject, then we can just delete that out of the cache and we're good to go. If the player clicks accept, then we make an actual temporary transaction in the database, and it'll be a very, very simple transaction. basically just say, hey, player A, player B, and then a key for the item that's being traded and a key for the currency that's going to be traded for that item. Something along those lines. Already, like, I'm thinking of optimizations where each player has one tab, and if you have an active transaction, you are not able to interact with that tab whatsoever. And actually, you know what? Let's go with that. This is how design works for software. And it's basically just a lockout on your player. Each player can just have one of these tabs, and it can just be a lockout on the player there too. This way, we can also keep it like kind of small, right? We can have a single non-quad tab that is set aside for this. And if you have an active transaction, that whole tab is locked down. This way we can keep the volume very low. We can even set a timer here and say you can only do, one official transaction every minute or every 5 minutes. And GGG can kind of set the timer and stop it from, very high volume trades for like crazy active traders or stopping bots or anything. But it will still, be a very nice convenience for the regular player. Everyone is happy, big hearts, roses, kisses around, and the super archaic trade method that feels like it's from 2004 can get updated a little bit. All right, so obviously this isn't a perfect solution. There's a lot of other little problems here. Maybe the infrastructure on the back end could not support something like this. As someone who has worked in software for a very long time, I know that making assumptions about what is easy and what is hard is the most foolish thing that you can do about someone else's software, right? But I think that this is actually a very, very important thing in Path of Exile. Like, really, the two things that they got to solve for the size of the community growing is new player accessibility and approachability to the game. That is a serious problem that is probably more fundamental than this. But for long-term retention and making the game more pleasant to play and a healthier economy, something like this, I think, would go a long way. It would live within GGG's manifesto and their ideas. By and large, I think this might be a little bit too far for them. If anything, just get rid of scamming, man. It's really, really bad. And yeah, hopefully this constructive criticism with a proposal for a fix gets seen by GGG, and maybe they get some ideas and they don't go this far, but maybe we see some trade fixes, because it is a long neglected portion of the game. All right, I got to go get ready for the stream. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye.